So, everybody, welcome. And I have a special guest tonight. Mayyad is a strategy and transformation management consultant currently living in the Middle East region. He is a proud Jordanian. He has advised many clients in the public and private sectors and across various industries, including healthcare, municipal energy, real estate, IT, and others. He has worked in Europe, Australia, and the Middle East. He is passionate about innovation, learning, knowledge management, and digital transformation, with a mission to create a positive impact on people's lives and contributing to a better future for the following generation. So welcome, Mayyad, to my audience, who are mostly New Zealanders.
Thank you, Gary. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
The reason why we started a conversation is because of your interest, your expertise in energy, energy security, energy supply. Is that a good way of describing that particular area of your expertise, Mayyad?
I'm a consultant. I worked with different clients in different industries. I don't claim to be an expert in energy, but I can only mention that currently in the Middle East, I'm working on a project to develop a strategy and to establish future foresight function. So just to clarify what that is, for a policy regulator, I'm promoting, or let's say setting the foundation of establishing a strategy that is more farsighted than the typical strategic plan, which usually goes in 3 to 5 years horizon. So let's say thinking further ahead and anticipating what are the changes that can happen, thinking more strategically, with future foresight. Again, I'm not an expert, but I'd like to share some points of view based on my experience in regulating the energy sector.
Just in the last couple of years, we have closed our only oil refinery, and although it's had very little publicity, our gas fields, offshore gas fields, which produce a condensate which can be refined. However, we no longer have any refining capacity, and my understanding is that those gas fields are in the process of being decommissioned, and there'll be no more oil and gas exploration in New Zealand. Now, given the events of what's happening in the Middle East right now, I and a number of other New Zealanders worry about our energy security. Can you elaborate? Give me your perspective.
Sure, Gary. Now, first of all, it's understandable, the New Zealand government direction in terms of going green. Now, this is a global concern because of global warming. Now, many governments are basically aligning on reaching a net zero by 2050. So in general, it is understanding that direction, decarbonization, and there's no question it is good for our environment. However, decarbonization and moving into clean energy has its own challenges. So you cannot just go 100%. So there are ramifications. So it's important to think strategically about the energy mix. Yes, if wars happen, that certainly, as we have learned from the past, it does impact economically, socially, in many different ways. So, yeah, maybe we can talk about the impact of the war in the Middle East. But perhaps my concern is having shut down the refinery, which actually is very important for the processing of fossil fuels. Is that part of a bigger strategy? How is the government, like any other government, thinking about it? Is it considering sufficiently the different scenarios that could happen, including war? including natural disasters. So there needs to be a well-defined government strategy, and you cannot look at the decision of closing the refinery on itself. There are bigger considerations. As a government, it has a responsibility to think about what does it mean on the social, on the economical, on the political, across environmental as well, across the different perspectives, to make sure that you are having the right energy policy.
It's a complex issue, and I think that there has been an oversimplification of the issues here in New Zealand. I should point out, Mayyad, that we have just had a general election, and there is going to be a change of government, which we will know the exact details of in the next couple of weeks. There will be a re-evaluation of our energy security policies. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen, particularly in light of what is going on in the Middle East right now. New Zealand, many of us fear that New Zealand is, despite being so far away, in fact, we're the furthest away of probably any country from the conflict that is going on in the Middle East and Northern Europe as well. But we're now 100% dependent on imported fuel supplies by a tanker, and we're in fact the last stop on the tanker. Mayyad, it does worry me, and it seems that we have actually undermined our energy security by closing our only refinery.
I certainly understand your concern, and I think New Zealanders should be concerned about this. Now, if we look at the energy mix that New Zealand has, yes, there's a direction of using clean energy, biothermal, and other renewable energy sources, which I believe I've just done quick research, that makes up about 40%. 60% of New Zealand's energy comes from fossil fuels. The primary source is oil. Okay, so the number one, I believe 32%, so that's 1/3 of roughly of New Zealand's energy comes from oil, while I think it's about 21% comes from gas. So oil and refining oil and access to oil products is strategic to New Zealand. It's the most important strategic asset. Regardless on, we spoke about the direction of clean energy, that's another point. But this is your most strategic energy source and should be dealt with strategically. So I think that's one point important to highlight. Now, if we touch on that, this is why I mentioned in your last question that you need to look at this in terms of the overall energy policy. Look at it strategically. It seems to me, I've done some again quick research on Marsden Point, and it seems that my impression is that the decision, I don't think we all have enough information, but clearly this was done in a board. This was based on commercial decision. I believe it's called Channel Infrastructure, which is a consortium of the big energy players, and they have made a decision. I'm not sure what was the government's take on that. But the first point is your most strategic asset, it's been privatized fully. Now, what does the government have to say when a decision is made on commercial basis? See, now we're talking about energy security. What if basically all the other energy sources are done commercially? Then I don't think that the government is considering the people, its obligation to its people, which is to ensure security of food, of fuel, basic needs. Fossil fuels byproducts affect farmers, affect production in many, many different ways. Maybe we can talk about that. If the decision was done based on commercial basis, maybe what are some ways that should be considered? I think that's a key question for your most strategic energy asset.
Yeah. Again, I'm not an expert on these. My take of it was that, yes, Marsden Point was privatised with the view that it'll be more efficient and it'll save money and we'll be able to, and the price at the pump will come down and so on. We didn't actually see any of that, but my understanding is that the board had a look at it and said, and it was going to be cheaper. They would make more profit if they simply bought in the refined fuel from Singapore and elsewhere. Marsden Point was turned into basically a storage and staging place for distribution. Yeah. So for the board of directors, for their shareholders, it probably was a sensible decision. But you've been saying, Mayyad, what is strategically the right thing to be doing for New Zealand as a sovereign nation, correct?
Yeah. So maybe the situation or the numbers, look favorable commercially at the moment, at the current oil price. Maybe there's some anticipation of some sensitivity change in pricing. But the question, the hypothesis you raised, Gary, what if there's war? What if the prices go back to what they were in 1973 or 1979? What's going to happen to New Zealand now relying, if the premise is importing refined oil from Asia is cheaper, that's the hypothesis. And now if the situation is different in, I don't know, let's say in 1 year, maybe 5, 10 years time, did they make the right decision? I mean, you mentioned maybe they've done the right decision. Maybe, they report back to their global head, we have saved X number of years. We are doing good job. Of course, that's their interest, not necessarily the people's interest. Now, I think the onus is on the government, whether in New Zealand or anywhere, to ensure energy security by, for example, anticipating different scenarios. So this is actually the project I'm doing is, let's say building scenarios and planning against those. So let's say you assume, this is the path where we're going. These are the plausible futures, the possible futures. What if things go south, a pessimistic scenario? Or an optimistic scenario. What if technology evolves, and so on? Governments have a responsibility to have a strategy to look at these scenarios and carefully study the implications of these scenarios on policies and ensure that the policies are protecting the interests of the people, which essentially every government, that should be their main concern, not necessarily being friendly with the corporate, but primarily they are there to serve the people. So I feel like the premises or the logic that has been presented is not far-sighted enough. It is limited thinking, and we could reach into a situation of a black swan. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term. I think the author is Taleb. He introduced that. It's actually ones in the Netherlands. When they came to Australia. Now, before, if you tell there are black swans, people will go, "You're crazy. This is not there." And when the Dutch went to Australia, they discovered that there are indeed black swans, and became common knowledge. And then typically the attitude, "Oh yeah, we knew that all along." So this is maybe a situation of a black swan where if something goes bad, then the government might say, "Oh, we will react, we will rectify." But the question is, did you think about it before? Did you plan for it? Did you do your duty to its people rather than wait for crisis to happen? You should be prepared and have a energy policy that protects the people as every government should.
And my understanding, and again, this is not entirely clear, the way I see it is that there's a bit of a problem with the equation here. Dependent on 60% of our energy requirements is basically fossil fuels, hydrocarbons, and that is imported. We used to be able to refine, which gave us a degree of security in that we could then use our own domestic production of light crude so that if there was a major disruption somewhere else in the world, we wouldn't absolutely grown to a halt. My understanding is that we only have 4 to 6 weeks of, say, diesel actually here in New Zealand. But to recommission our oil refinery at Marsden Point, it could take 5 to 10 years. Now, that doesn't sound like energy security to me.
I'm sorry, it takes 5 to 10 years to reactivate the refinery.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the refinery,
Was
it's been
dismantled surprisingly very quickly.
it's like as
Decision
soon as
made.
the decision was made, it's like the demolition crews were in there, and there were allegations that they poured concrete into pipes. They didn't put nitrogen into pipes to prevent corrosion. It looked like apparently they cut through all the electrical cables. It wasn't a decommissioning. Some of us would say it was a vandalizing. And we also, it's all very quiet, but apparently something similar is happening with our offshore gas fields. They're decommissioning them as well. And if we've only got 6 weeks energy security, but it might take us 5 to 10 years to restore the energy security that we have dismantled. The maths doesn't sound good to me.
Yeah. New Zealand, if these scenarios happen, New Zealand would be hostage to other countries, or I'm sorry, maybe not hostage, dependent on other countries to ensure the covering the basic needs of the people. Yes, certainly there is a concern if there's a limited supply and the supply is only for a few weeks. So you have moved from a situation where New Zealand, as a producer of refined, by the way, very high quality refined oil that produces less emission. So it's important to note about the grade that was produced is considered high quality. So moving from a situation where actually most of the oil, there was excess that is actually exported to other countries outside of New Zealand because, you have covered, you have self-sufficiency. And this is actually something positive for the GDP. Moving into a situation where you are importing basically, which actually can impact the GDP in the other way. So this is also one way that does not make sense, not only on, let's say, the security of having supply in the anticipated future, should any unforeseeable bad events happen, but also economically, it's not for the interest of the people, where your primary, let's say, energy source where you are generating money for the people, and positive GDP is turning the other way around. There's igniting of fires in our region, the Middle East region. Who's to say that this will not expand into something bigger? Who's to say if the world stays silent to the continued killing that will force the Arab governments to repeat what they have done in 1973, which was, by the way, out of reluctance. I don't think that the Western world and people around the world realized the cries coming from the Middle East until something that was done in 1973. Well, regardless of what was the reasoning behind, but it happened. Now, what's happening at the moment? I don't want to sidetrack.
I think we should talk about it now, Mayyad. I think we should talk about what's going on in the Middle East, because this is why over the last few years we've been saying New Zealand is now incredibly vulnerable. If that tanker doesn't come, if those trucks that deliver the food to the cities stop running, if they don't deliver the food, then there'll be New Zealanders starving to death within 2 weeks. This is serious stuff for New Zealand.
Yeah.
We're looking at what's going on over in the Middle East and thinking, it's not going to affect us. Maybe the price is going to go up a bit. Russia, one of the biggest oil producers. Iran, one of the biggest oil producers. And then you've got the Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia and so on, oil producers. Now, The United States, on its own, I mean, I just look at their war machine. They've got nuclear weapons. Israel's got nuclear weapons, and what's happening is that everybody's baying for everybody's blood. You know, it would seem to me that for the Arab nations to respond militarily, that will be just an unbelievable conflagration. The deaths and destruction would be beyond anything we can imagine. But what would happen if all of those countries simply turned off the oil? What would that do?
I think all these scenarios need to be contemplated. The majority of Arab countries and the Arab people in the Middle East region are peace-seeking people. Now, whatever you see on TV,
of course,
but no one wants war. Not the people, not governments. But of course, we have the existence of Israel, as you mentioned, as a nuclear power, as people, or as a nation that has mustered so much power around the world, influencing policies that we are having to deal with. And, you just wish that you are not cornered, because essentially, we don't want this scenario to happen. We don't want what happened in 1973 to be repeated. We want, as we were in the past, maybe, if I have an opportunity to talk about history, we always contributed positively to the world. Now, okay, in modern history, there's different impressions, but, there are maybe political reasons behind that. But anyway, the Palestinian struggle, if I may call it that, maybe establishing the state of Israel is a factor, but then in the end, at the expense of what? Now we have millions of people that don't have home, they lost identity. Some people, like in Gaza, are in the world's largest prison. And the fact what's happening right now on the ground, the killing and the volume of killing of people, in mass numbers, I don't think that the Arab states, even though we are peace-loving, will continue to allow that to happen. Maybe America will allow it to happen. Maybe some countries, want to be politically correct or, be friendly with the people that pull the strings and the powers. But I just hope that it doesn't, push does not come to shove. In which case, what you mentioned is certainly, important consideration. So I just want to highlight that we want peace, but I think many people in the Middle East, Arab countries, are very concerned, to say the least, about the killing of innocent people, regardless of their religion. That's not our, concern. Our concern is the genocides that happen and the killings of civilians. That is very, very concerning, and on a bigger scale. I don't want to divert too much into that, but certainly if this continues, and the silence of world governments, or giving the green light to the Israeli government to continue doing what they're doing, that is actually a cause of concern. Maybe, I don't know, I can, talk about that a bit, but, I'd like to frame it maybe perhaps, I don't know, in another conversation, we can talk about the Middle East. But I just want to mention that certainly, as you mentioned, the oil-producing political powers, the world is not okay. We are in the 21st century, in an age where we have access to information, and there are many things to be concerned that could one day, spill into an energy crisis, which is our topic today. So certainly, you need to. I think the people should be concerned, well, about energy security and also about what's happening. I don't know, on a humanistic.
Here in New Zealand, it's such a long way away. We see what's going on in Gaza, the bombing, and 50% of the people who are dying, I understand, are children, and it's quite likely that very soon people will be dying from starvation, dehydration, the inability to get medical treatment. It does sound like genocide. Now, but here in New Zealand, we can say, well, it's not in our backyard. So what's it to me? What's it to my family? But my understanding is that listening to some dispassionate commentators on geopolitics is the United States is gearing up, preparing to go to war with Iran. And that seems to be what the end game is, or the intention is, with the enormous concentration or build-up of American force in the Mediterranean. That really worries me because now it worries me anyway, okay? Because I do like to think that I'm a global citizen. I'm not just a New Zealander down at the end of the bottom of the world.
I don't know. I'm just, I even try to stay away from the news because,
yeah, don't we?
I
Yeah.
mean, politics is so dirty. I can smell it in my home from the TV. I don't know if that's a suitable expression,
Yeah.
but yeah. However, my perspective, I'd like to share. I mean, you mentioned
Please.
something, Gary. Okay, yeah, you're in beautiful New Zealand, which I love, by the way, and I love the nature, and I love the good people of New Zealand. I've been there, and I interacted with a lot of Kiwis. Besides the point, we are people, we are humans. Okay, and I'd like to think about it as humans. Now, what does this concern me? It's something that I watch on the news. Conveniently, I can just take whatever garbage the media feeds, and unfortunately, we are in an age of disinformation, which is, I don't know, by definition, is the intentional manipulation of people's thinking. I mean, it's not even misinformation. It is done on purpose. Now, what does that concern me as a Kiwi? I got my own life. I think we are in the 21st century at an inflicting point. Now, technology has evolved so much. We always had media, but we never had so much access to information. We are overloaded with information. We are at an inflection point. You cannot hide the truth anymore. Now, if you trouble yourself a bit, to search for truth, to search for information, you'll find what is mentioned on TV is certainly not the reality. Even the disturbing images that have been fabricated, or what has been told, I mean, raping of, like, for example, in the situation in Gaza, raping of hostages, or, chopping off babies' heads, and so on and so on. That rhetoric, that narrative that only serves certain purposes, not necessarily telling the truth. So my point
Can
is,
I just come in
please.
here, because this has been very widespread in New Zealand media. I have yet to see any verification of those allegations. It's easy to say these things. It's another thing to verify it. And they have not been verified. So are they just, well, you can call it disinformation, misinformation. Maybe we should just call it propaganda. Okay, it's war propaganda. But is there really any truth to it? Or if there is, was it a isolated case? Or was it widespread? Was it a deliberate policy? Where's the verification, Mayyad? Have any
I
of those
think
been
that's a
verified?
great question. I think that's a great question. I ask myself, I'm a normal person. I'm a global citizen like you.
Yeah.
I also question, and I have seen the images that were distributed after the October 7th attack by the Hamas forces. I have also seen disturbing images. So certainly something did happen, but I think you're asking the right question, to verify. Okay, just because, let's say somebody with a gun, storming into an occupied territory, okay, that means that their intention is rape, killing, and harm. I think that is something that we all should try to verify. I also, tried to find out. I don't know. I mean, I just seen a video yesterday. One of the Israeli hostages that was released, and maybe I can share it with you. She is speaking about how well treated she was, no harm. She was sharing the food with the Hamas people, and she got medical attention where she needed. Oh no, actually, she was referring to another guy who had like some shoulder injury. So I don't know. This is some indication, firsthand. Now, I don't know, but I think that we need to verify, not take what is mentioned as true. Verify.
And it works both ways. The allegations against like Hamas, but also the allegations, for example, of say an Israeli missile targeting or a bomb targeting a hospital. Where's the verification? There needs to be some kind of independent investigation to verify that it was, in fact, an Israeli bomb, and why was that targeted there? If it was, in fact, an Israeli bomb, was it a mistake or was it deliberate? And so on. We need this, we need to lift the fog of war. We need transparency.
If I may
and
just make a correction, Gary, okay?
Yes, please.
You mentioned Israel against Hamas, with the bombs. Now, I honestly, I don't care about Hamas. I'm not, with them or for them. But I think, the bombs are against civilians. That's my concern. And you make a good point. I just want to, to if I may, it is actually against the Palestinian civilians living in Gaza, not against Hamas. There's no evidence that, all the killings and the bombings, that is the most intensive. I don't know. In maybe 1 week, the Israeli, IDF, Israeli Defense Force, has dropped more bombs than the US have dropped on Afghanistan in over a year. So certainly, I don't know, it looks like genocide to me, when within a few weeks, the numbers that I got is until the end of last weekend, 7,230 something people dead. Many of them are women and children, and 18,000 people injured. Now, this is according to numbers issued by the Palestinian Health Ministry. Now, President Biden went out on the media. He says, I have my doubts about these numbers. Okay, well,
yes,
maybe, to protect anything in the future, that he is actually unfortunately, many governments are supporting a genocide in the 21st century. Now we are back in the dark ages somehow. Now, the UN Secretary General has said in a statement, this is according to what I read in the media, by the way, that these numbers are most likely accurate. And according to our investigation, what he said, in the past wars and attacks on Gaza and the Palestinian territory, the numbers were accurate and valid. So between believing President Biden and the numbers, on the ground by the the Red Cross, which is the Red Crescent, which is like the Red Cross, and their numbers, I tend to believe them, and it appears to me that we are witnessing a genocide in the 21st century. And Gary, what strikes me, we watch a YouTube video, with a dog being hurt or a cat, or we go cute cat, okay. We are humans, but when it comes to children, hopeless women being killed every day, we are not moved. So what is a Palestinian child's life, or a struggling Palestinian woman's life, less value than a cat, that's just maybe something for us to wonder about. Is it okay just because there's a group of thugs, or I don't know if I should call Hamas that, or what's a better expression,
Yeah.
that people have to be punished, collective punishment? What are we talking about, Gary? We're talking about people that have been in prison since 2007 in the world's largest open prison. That is the Gaza Strip, which is actually just a strip of land, the most condensed place on Earth. Now, they've been in a blockade, complete blockade. They had to resort to tunnels to get food, fuel, basic supplies, and now that is all being destroyed. Currently, they don't have access to food. They don't have access to water. They don't have access to fuel. Even ambulance cars, with all the bombings, the ambulances don't have the fuel because it's been cut off. Now, people are, if they have any fuel left, they carry the injured from the bombings into hospital in their private cars, or on horse carriages, whatever access. There's no internet connection. There's actually dead bodies. There's no, let's say, the tractors, to pull out the rubble to get the survivors out. They don't have fuel. Now, this is creating also an environment disaster. The dead people under the rubble, the bodies are, I don't know if it's the right word, decomposing, which actually has health issues. Garbage is not being collected because the main dump is on the border with Israel, so they don't have access. So garbage is piling up, and quite honestly, the Gazan people are being treated like garbage by the world. Okay, and but thank God, because we are living in our age, there's the position of the government, of the news, and there's the position of the people. Now we see demonstrations, and it's mainly the new generation that is not so gullible. They don't just buy things. They have human values that unfortunately maybe quite few of us have lost over time. Demonstrations all around the world refusing the genocide that is happening. I don't know. There's a lot to talk about, Gary, but I don't want to. But
look,
I think it's important to understand that what is happening now is something we all need to reflect. We are in the 21st century. We need to decide, what kind of human am I, regardless if I'm, down under, I don't know, in Fiji, or right in the heart of Gaza as human. Is this aligned with my values? Just because I buy a certain propaganda.
Well, Mayyad, I'll just elaborate on. Let's just talk about this a little bit further. So, Alofa and I were your guest in Dubai almost this time last year, November, December last year, and we've travelled a reasonable amount, and we've always made the point of not staying in fancy hotels, but going and staying with the people in the land that we visit.
Yeah. And I was
we were your
honored
guest
to meet you.
And we did not stay in the flash part of Dubai. We stayed with the workers who clean the streets, keep the place operating. We felt very safe. We were welcome. When we do that, Mayyad, we're always welcome. Anywhere that we go, we're always welcome. And that's because, yes, we are all humans. And what is common between you and me? We want the best for our family. We want to provide for our family. We want to provide food, shelter, security. That's the common denominator amongst all people on this planet, no matter where we go. However, there are amongst us a few evil people who would dare to exploit our generosity and our trusting. Would that be a good way of sort of summarizing it, Mayyad? We can't say Palestinians bad, Israelis bad, this or that. I think we all have the same basic needs.
Agree with you, Gary. We are all humans at the end of the day, no matter what color of skin, where we come from, what we call our home, we are all humans. Now,
Yeah.
I think the danger, in my opinion, being a Muslim, that's a large portion of the world's population. Okay, just because there are certain extremists that do things that are evil, it does not actually mean that this is what it is to be a Muslim. So then it goes back to propaganda and what you hear on the in the media. And I'm sure, Gary, like your experience, when you came to Dubai or you go to Jordan or you go to most countries, you will feel safe. And as a matter of fact, you will feel welcomed and helped. So I don't think it's fair to label people based on religion, color, nationality, citizen. The life also, just linking what we said earlier, the life of a Palestinian is also valuable. The Palestinian child or Palestinian father, and it's not less than an Israeli life. So yes, we share. I think as humans, we all want to care for our family. We all, want to live peacefully, safely, to thrive, to dream, to be inspired. We all share the same things as humans. But unfortunately, we live in a world where you cannot trust what you read on the news. You cannot trust what's on the media. And by the way, I saw a poll, Gary, yesterday. In the US, the confidence of Americans in the media is at an all-time low. Less, I think, than 1/3 of people believe what's in the media. Now, my concern is New Zealanders, and I've been there and I interacted with a lot of Kiwis, very kind, very generous people. And I'm not saying that because you are a Kiwi, but I think, it starts from goodness. Okay, it starts from goodness. Sorry, I just want to make this point that I think it's important. Kiwis tend to, have a tendency to believe, to have faith in people, to trust as good people, and as should that humans in. I don't know, maybe it's a philosophical discussion. Is the core, of people evil or good? I believe it's good, but of course you get exposed to all sorts of things. So I think New Zealanders are smart. I don't doubt the intelligence, such as you are, Gary. But I think you can be influenced by government, by the news. So I think extra care, because you come from goodness. You have to really take every piece of information you hear with a grain of salt. And I think New Zealanders ought to search for the truth and question everything critically in order to reach the truth.
Human kindness and generosity, it's a universal which we find everywhere, and certainly I think for me the key is to show humility. And like when I go into a person's home, is that I go in and I show respect and humility, and I accept the the welcome and the generosity of my host, and I enjoy their food. I do not put myself above them, no matter their education, no matter how poor they are, because we are, in the end, all the same. We just want the best for our families. And that's it. And that really does then bring us back to like what's happening in Gaza, where we are treating the people there as if they were animals, as if they were vermin. They are razing Gaza to the ground. They're turning it into rubble. And then it asks the question, what's going to happen to all those people? The ones now, because so they're shifting them all south, aren't they? People are being shifted south, and they're bombing. They're turning the north into basically a wasteland. So if they keep doing that, what is going to happen? What is going to happen to those 2.2 million people? Where are they going to go, Mayyad? They can't go back north because it's just rubble. And they're already overcrowded. So if you push them all down into the southern strip, how can they possibly live?
Yeah.
I mean, what's going to happen, Mayyad? Can you tell me?
Sure. Now, you touch on very, very important points, many of them. I mean, I think what is happening on the occupied Palestinian territories and, the state of Israel is an apartheid system, clearly, without a question. Dig in a little bit. First class, second class citizens. You have Israeli citizens that go to music concerts, and they have every form of luxury, good jobs, etc. And then you have the Palestinians that are humiliated every day, made to submit. They cannot go to work, okay, without an Israeli checkpoint. They even the so-called peace, the President Abbas of Palestine, he has to get permission from Israel if he has to move. So there is clearly a system of apartheid. So I just need to clarify that
Mayyad,
on your first.
Can I interject just on one thing? So I was watching a video just yesterday, and apparently, I think it was the West Bank. The Israeli Defense Forces did a nighttime raid into a village, and they took in an armored bulldozer, which dug up all of the water and utility that basically dug up the roadway. Just drove through the village and ripped up all of the utilities. Now, was that true? Did they actually
I
do
haven't
that?
seen I haven't seen that video, Gary, but I can tell you that what they are doing in Gaza. Like they are in the dark. They cut off electricity. They cut off water. They cut off the internet. So these are the brutal practices that people in Gaza are living with every day. Even let's say there was a bomb, okay? They cannot call an ambulance. I was watching something on the news, okay? You don't have internet, you don't have anything. I mean, already the strain on the healthcare system, it is completely unhumane.
What's going to happen to Gaza?
Yeah, well, you mentioned, Gary, is that the Israeli forces told the Gazans to move down south, okay? Otherwise, they will die, quote unquote. I don't know what terms they use. Now, for your information, what I see on the news is many Gazans refuse to leave. Some have tried, and they were being bombed along the way. There's no safe passage. And I heard also another Gazan say, well, if I go where? Okay. There's nowhere for me to go. Go where? this is my home.
mm,
I'm used to the killing. It has been so
mm,
much. I'll just, the people have grown so much resolve that what Israel tried to do, as they have done in 1948. So also important to know the history. Uh, as they have done in 1948, the same similar threats. We are coming with bombs, with I don't know, it was F-16s or F-14s at the time, and bombs. And they pushed people out of what is today Israel, and many of them, have run away to avoid being killed with whatever they can carry that day. They moved into Jordan in the
mm,
hope of returning to their homeland. Now this was in 1948, 75 years ago.
mm,
They were not able to return to their homeland. Now it's somebody else's homeland. They lost their homes. So uh,
mm,
okay, maybe to talk about history needs some
mm,
time. But essentially, also a lot of Gazans are saying, "Oh, you're trying to push us away, so then you can come and invade our land." Already, we are in the most condensed places in the world, in a short strip with 2 million people. You're trying to squeeze whoever is alive to push them into a smaller area, like rats. Okay, so you can
mm,
actually exterminate them all at once. I mean, there are extreme politicians in the Israeli government, and this is really the problem. Um, they are extremists, okay? No attention is being paid to them. They want to annihilate the Palestinian people.
mm,
I shared with you an interview with Bassam Youssef,
mm. Yeah,
Gary,
very good.
and yeah, and he was saying, how many Palestinians have to die before you're satisfied? So,
Mm,
uh, so I'm touching on the point that actually telling people, seeming like you are showing mercy, to go down south. Um,
mm,
Palestinians are not accepting those who tried. There were many incidents documented, if you look in the news, who were bombed along the way.
mm,
They don't have fuel for the cars to be able to run away. Uh,
mm,
they don't have anywhere to go. There's actually no access. They're not allowing access to, human aid, food, basic
mm,
supplies. They're being blocked by the Israeli forces. So this is a case of, I don't know what's the word to describe it. There are no words to describe what
mm,
is happening.
mm,
Is so inhumane, and I think what is more inhumane is, maybe you don't know about the suffering, is not considering and being sided in this struggle. Actually, I take it back. This is not a struggle, as you mentioned. This is
mm,
a nuclear power who has the one of the strongest armies in the world. Okay,
mm.
and the other party that is being occupied. Um, so there is no struggle here. There is actually hope and prayer for compassion, for people to be aware, and to stop a genocide, and hopefully to reach peace.
You've given us a very valuable, very important perspective, a perspective that we are not really getting, certainly not here in New Zealand. We've highlighted the plight of the Palestinians and linking it for New Zealanders to understand how, if this gets out of hand, New Zealand is not immune to the consequences. What is happening in the Middle East? It is a human tragedy. We can't ignore that. But we also need to understand that New Zealand is economically, through our lack of energy security, we are extremely vulnerable. And the events of what's going on in the Middle East could have absolutely catastrophic effects on New Zealand within a couple of months. If the diesel runs out, the food stops being delivered. Okay, it's as simple as that. People will starve within a couple of weeks because there'll be no Uber Eats being delivered to their apartments. So we can't sit by and look at what's going on in the Middle East and say, it's not in my backyard, so it doesn't matter.
Certainly, that is a good summary
Okay.
on one part of our discussion.
Yeah. Well,
Definitely. Yeah.
Mayyad, one of the take-home messages I'm taking from this, we've got a new government coming in. This new government needs to place energy security as a top priority, and it needs to be a priority right now, okay? Because the events of what is going on in your part of the world right now, it is what happens in the next few days or the next few weeks could have catastrophic effects on New Zealand in terms of energy security. We've got a new government coming in, and this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to look at our policies with regards to energy. And we need to have a fresh look. Okay. And you've really highlighted that for us. So I want to really thank you for this, Mayyad. So we'll finish now.
Yeah, from my side, I want to thank you and my greetings to the good people of New Zealand. And yeah, always good to see you and to talk to you. God bless you and God bless New Zealand.